here's the agenda for the day. We're going to be first giving the microphone to Harri Mikkonen from Microsoft. He's the Microsoft 365 Product Marketing Manager in Finland, and we're going to be looking at collaboration, what it means to actually collaborate with Microsoft Teams, what its role is right now, and especially what it is in the future. And then after his presentation, I'm going to be back at the wheel, and we're going to take a look at some of the ways that we can efficiently do digital business with mFiles and the Microsoft 365, especially Teams today, and how to actually manage and share information over there with the demo included. And I do hope that we have time in the end, we will then be having a short Q&A session with some of the questions that you might have over there. We have an enormous amount of registrants, so welcome everybody. As you can see, you're probably all in mute only mode, so you're not able to speak, but there is a question window on the GoToWebinar application that you should be able to have available over there for you to send questions for us, and we'll be trying to answer those to the best of our abilities, even already during this session, or if not, we'll get back to you after this session. So without any further ado, I think I will now switch the presentation rights to you, Harri, so that you can take over.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I assume you can see my screen now. My name is Harri Mikkonen. As mentioned, I work in product marketing of Microsoft 365 solutions at Microsoft. I'm part of the multi-country team in Western European organization. And what this product marketing means at Microsoft, it means that we are driving different activities to increase productivity, but we hope that we also offer solutions that increase employee engagement or even pure happiness at work. And we come back to that, and you don't have to take only my word, because I also refer to recent studies we've done in this area. But as mentioned in the beginning, it's very wide and very diverse audience today. So first, I'd like to know a little bit more about your current experience about Microsoft Teams. So let's dig into that first. That if you could describe with a poll that is set up now, that what are you mainly using Microsoft Teams for? Is it tool for chat? Are you using it only for meetings? Are you working on shared files? Are you doing all of those things? Or are you not yet using Microsoft Teams? I'll give you a couple of more seconds so we get a good picture. It's stabilizing quite a lot now, but I think, okay, I think we can now close the poll and see if you can show the results, so we see that where we are. And if I look at my view here now, it looks that I'm happy to see that almost half of the people are using Teams for all of the above. So when we try to bring the message that Teams will become a hub for teamwork in Microsoft 365, this proves that. I'm not surprised that 32% says that meetings is one of their key scenarios, because that's been increasing heavily, especially due to COVID-19 recently. And it's quite natural that meetings is one of the key scenarios. But it's good information for me that a little bit less than 10% is not yet so familiar with Teams. So I think before digging into collaboration, what collaboration means in Teams and for Teams and other topics, I think we could now move on with the presentation and then start to look at that. What are the key elements, just quickly, for Microsoft Teams? So if we move on, Microsoft Teams, it's what we want to say, it's hub for teamwork in Microsoft 365. And it means that it's not only chat, it's not only meetings, but it's lots of many things. Being a hub for teamwork means that you don't have to jump between different applications on certain tasks you're working on, but you can stay inside Teams and you can create seamless integration to different documents and applications, for example. But of course, chat is a critical component here. And for chat can be one-to-one, it can be one-to-many, it can include many elements, it can be, of course, GIFs and sharing images, but one of the crucial elements is that it's fully integrated to other Microsoft 365 solutions so that you can, for example, share different files from Microsoft 365 to other participants in the chat, which means that you will always have the very same version of the documents or presentations, for example, or Excel files you're sharing with other people. You can really get rid of sending email attachments, and you can be sure that you will always have the latest copy of the information available. For both chat and meetings, it's good to understand that it's very simple to extend also outside your own organization, so that you can add other people to your chat and meetings. So if we jump to meetings next, I think this is very familiar scenario now. What I'm happy to see happening is that people also start to use video now, because it starts to be a pretty long time that we've met some of our colleagues or partners or other employees physically. So I claim that when using video, we can express quite a lot, and we can also notice different things in our audience better, so that we get a better general feelings and impressions what's happening inside the meeting. So for meetings, we can, of course, have them ad hoc meetings, but typically meetings happen so that you reserve them in advance from your calendar. And it's I want to emphasize that it's very simple to add external participants as well. In simplest scenario, you just need an email address, and the recipient needs any browser, and they can join the meeting with almost all functionalities available. If you don't want to use video, you can of course use it only for calling your colleagues, and if you integrate it to telephone network, you can in practice call anyone from Teams. One more thing about team structure is that teams include, of course, teams, and every team will have a channel structure. You can add different channels for different purposes, and inside every channel, you will have different tabs. Typically, you see their post to the chat, discussion. You have your shared files there and so on. But what I think is the really increasing area of utilizing Teams now is so that you add applications here, and you can add here as a tab. Here's some returns app for some retail customer, so that for applications you use daily, for them to, you don't have to jump back and forth to the applications, but you can integrate the full application here, or certain workflows from the application, or certain tasks, or just notifications. And another option is then to bring them to left-hand rail, so that we see that in addition to what I could call traditional Teams elements, you have Yammer integrated here from Microsoft Stack, but you have also these returns apps, and then you have repository for different applications available for this organization. So I think this is area that increases quite heavily right now. So in the headline, I promised that we talk about collaboration. And what is collaboration? If we go back to the definition first, so collaboration is working towards common goal. It needs some effort and commitment from the members of the team, for example. I think that what is quite clear typically to employees is that how collaboration happens on personal level. And now when Teams usage has increased quite heavily, people have a better understanding what it can mean on team level. But what is yet to be figured out for many is that what it means on organizational level. But today in this presentation, I'd like to focus on team level, so that what kind of activities and collaboration drive productivity on team level. And if we jump a little bit back to the teams, we should first look at, okay, what is the definition of a team? So team is a group of individuals that work on interdependent activities towards a common outcome. And team characteristics are typically pretty same, so that team is working for these outcomes. They have some leader, they have some defined processes, people have different skills, roles and responsibilities, and of course they are members of team. What is a little bit changing is that how these teams are structured, so that there are lots of virtual teams, and there are virtual teams that can have external participants, and this is changing quite a lot. And also how long, so that we set up teams for shorter times of period on very short projects as well. And then we need agile methods of setting up the tools to support those functionalities and activities. So if you look at the activities, what happens inside the teams, and if we also add a layer of our solutions, this might look busy in the beginning, but these are quite typical tasks that teams are working for. These are the activities and outcomes for different teams. But I mentioned that it might look busy, but what is the key that all of these activities, or majority of them, can be managed inside Teams itself. So you don't have to jump back and forth, so that the Teams is the tool for performing this activity, or then some other solution is tightly integrated there, so you have a feeling that you really can perform inside the Teams. But if I have to choose something here, what has changed with Microsoft Teams is that I think that we spend too much time still on even on simplest activities or tasks, working together on same files, or setting up the meetings, or participating in meetings, or presenting in the meetings, and we waste quite a lot of time. And typically this is due to the fact that this has not been standardized, so that people use inside the same organization, they use different tools and technologies to perform the same tasks, which make it quite complex quite soon to employees to understand that which tool should be used for which purpose. So our solution to standardize all this is Microsoft Teams with security in mind. And in practice, what we can also add that if you integrate those third-party applications here, you don't have to, for example, log into different systems, but you are using your corporate identity for all these team activities you're working for. So I mentioned in the beginning that don't take just my word on this, but we've done some studies around this. And next, I'd like to dig deeper to one of the studies we performed last November. And let's dig into that next. So last November, we did an European study in 15 countries. The study is called Work Reward, and we were interviewing managers and employees. 1/6 of the interviewees were managers, and we were especially interested in finding out that what organizations that consider themselves innovative and what they think they do differently, what kind of behavior they promote in their organization. And a couple of highlights came out from that, and there were like, there's a huge need to tear down silos and build bridges, so that how we can more easily collaborate not just inside our teams, but between the teams and even with partners and customers, how we enable true collaboration with all of those. Because many of these organizations say that to enable this, you need to change the culture, but you cannot change culture itself. It's always an outcome of something. And these three topics are kind of an outcomes that enable this change happen eventually. Second point here is that how we empower teams and create learning culture. And one of the key findings was that teams who thought that are really innovative and are successful, they have some autonomy of tackle their challenges their own way. And it's also okay of making mistakes, try different things, so that if you give them some kind of a framework, they can choose that when and how they work performing those team's tasks discussed earlier. And third, very interesting finding is flow, so that how we would protect ourselves from different distractions throughout the day, so that we wouldn't feel that we will waste up to 52% of our time every week. How we would get in kind of a flow state, so that we think that we perform best. Because if we go a little bit deeper to this flow thing, people themselves said that when they reach this flow state, they are much happier with their job. Even they were even 3 times more likely to say that they're happy with their job. So how we protect ourselves of losing 52% of our time, how we enable this kind of a flow state. And I think this is pretty much related to second bullet in previous slides, so that how we give kind of an autonomy that we can choose different times and places and environments to work on certain tasks. We have some autonomy of choosing the working style that best suits just me, so that we have some kind of an autonomy enabled there. I got myself quite interested about this 52%, what it consists of. So I thought that I also show something here that where is this 52% wasted? What people think that how it's wasted, because that's remarkable amount of working time per every week, half of it. So interruptions, and interruptions is interesting and important here, because coming back to the flow state from every interruption, it can take up to 12 minutes. So if you have 5 interruptions in your hour, you lost the full hour of real work. Not just any meetings or calls or emails, but meetings, calls, and emails people thought that are not relevant to them at all. Why I am in this meeting, why I get this email, do I have to act on this email, and so on. Information searching. I hope this will get better, because we cannot resist amount of information is increasing exponentially all the time, but people still feel that they spend too much time searching for information. And the saddest part of it is that many of these people often feel that they are looking for internal information, and even further, they don't find any relevant solution. So what we can do to make it better? So any activities we can drive with productive collaboration that can decrease this amount, I think it's very helpful for any organization. I mentioned that teams can help in many areas, especially working on team level. So I chose one example, what we could do better. I mentioned simple task of working on files or setting up the meetings. So I think it's a good exercise to everybody to think about that, how we would run more effective meetings, so that people don't feel that they just waste their time, and everybody has the chance to collaborate to those outcomes as mentioned. So I claim that with Teams, if you have the same information available, you can be better prepared for the meetings. Everybody has the same information. And for example, good use case here is to think about you invite new member to your team, how many tools you have to use to get that person information that they are better prepared for their first meeting. During the meeting, I think it's important to make sure everyone's voice is heard technically, but also so that you take into consideration that everybody might have good or better ideas to your team's outcomes. Of course, you can utilize lots of modern technology in the meetings. If you have a modern PC, you can ink, you can use whiteboard technology digitally. I really encourage you to use video, and also we have a modern technology that you can add live captions or subtitles to your presentation so that message is better delivered. And I think that what is saving most of my time currently is what we can do after meetings, because if we take notes, if we track actions, if you have any follow-throughs, we can automate it, we can save it at the same place, and so it's available for everybody right away. For a good example here is that if I would share this presentation in Teams to all of you, next time I open this presentation, PowerPoint itself will tell me that, hey, you presented it to these people, would you like to share a copy for them as you promised? And of course, what is important is that what happens between meetings, so that meetings could focus on decision making, if that's the purpose, and then we could continue discussion and collaboration on documents between the meetings too. Lots of data is generated, more people are contributing, so oftentimes we come to this situation that, hey, lots of new files and lots of new data is created, and people come back to me and say that now we have even more tools you have to go to. So I think that the hub for teamwork is not happening at that point. So what we can do there is, and if people think that they spend too much time to searching for information, I think we can increase information discoverability quite easily. I chose Juhani, who is presenting Microsoft in this event as well, so that what I can find from Juhani preparing for this event, for example, I can use Microsoft Search already now to see that, okay, what is Juhani working, what is Juhani's standard content information? I see who is his manager, but I also see a list of people he's really working with. So if I want to have more information, I can see that, okay, what is kind of his virtual team? Of course, I get information about all the files he's been working recently, but very important thing here is to understand that I cannot see anything Juhani doesn't want to share with me. I only see information if I am employee at Microsoft, that is the sign here, and I only see information Juhani has purposely shared so that I have a visibility and access to that too. So I don't have to really worry about any of my colleagues about people they're working with, which groups they are members of, what size they're working on, what files they're working on, what kind of conversations. So I don't really have to care if the information is stored in Teams, Yammer, Outlook, SharePoint, FileShares, whatever. I get a very good view on that. I chose this topic here because this is a question I get a lot, so that now I'm even more lost than earlier, that I cannot really figure out where the information is. So in addition to working on chat, collaborating, working on files, and having meetings, I think the next big thing will be to bring existing solutions to Teams. We have lots of different methodologies to do this, so that we can publish information throughout different tabs in Teams. We can create interactive bots. We can push notifications to what we call adaptive cards and so on. So we have different interfaces to that information. In a backend, we can use several Microsoft technologies, and this is all seamlessly integrated to Teams. So as mentioned, Teams will become a hub for applications as well. So what are these applications? Let's look at that then. So of course, first layer in the bottom is the Microsoft applications. They are already there, and we are happy to see that more and more of the third-party applications are coming here as well. So that, for example, M-Files is there already. They have an integration with Microsoft Teams. And then, if needed, we have a very agile methods for organizations themselves to support, for example, what we call citizen developers, if they want to create themselves departmental tools, or then we have a set of partners doing vertical solutions. So that this is the next large milestone, creating Teams as a hub for teamwork. And how it then looks like for employees themselves is that this is the clip from last week, how my Teams look like. So in addition to traditional Teams icons here, I have Teams Ready application here, I have Yammer here, I have some approval workflows. If I'm working on shifts, I have that possibility there. So I have some integration. And integration in the most lightweight version is that, for example, if you have lots of new users who want to start using Teams, why wouldn't we use this spot here to show that, okay, here is our internal instructions for how to make best out of Teams. So I think that this left trail is becoming really, really valuable, so that if you have your applications here, this is where people put their attention when they open the software first time. But I think this is a natural place to give a ball back to M-Files, because now we've discussed what is Microsoft Teams, how it's related to collaboration, what collaboration means on team level, what we have found that innovative organizations think they do better. And now when I end my presentation on third-party integration, supporting the idea of Teams becoming hub for teamwork, I think this is very natural place to M-Files to tell how they think about this integration. Thank you now, and I'll stay throughout this event and start looking at possible questions you have arised. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Harri. And we will now go into the world of M-Files and see how that integrates with Teams and how we feel those two applications complete each other and each other's feature sets. Okay, so first, we're going to actually take a look at, just a brief information about us. So we see ourselves as a leading SaaS provider for intelligent information management solutions. We have about 500 employees, over 300 resellers, and we got thousands of customers in more than 100 countries. We got about about 10 or 11 offices across seven different countries, and we seem to be expanding all the time. Just one word from our analysts. Gartner, for example, last year put us in their visionary quadrant over there, in their magic quadrant for content services platforms, and we're hoping to show actually in the demo section just why we feel they have actually positioned us over there. So first, a few words about digital transformation, and as we go through this, I'd like you to think about like where you are on this journey, where you'd like to see yourself within the next 5 years, and what are the steps that you think that you should be taking right now. So I've led this picture from Gartner's analysis, and they have positioned and divided the digital transformation journey into these 3 different sections. So governance-centric systems, process-centric systems, and then engagement-centric systems. And basically, this journey has usually started with the companies in the 2000s with the governance-centric systems, meaning where do you actually store your information and how do you access it? And a lot of this information and a lot of this started because of some either laws, either some regulations in certain industries, for example, or just some other mandatory sections of why and how certain information had to be arranged so that you could go through, for example, through audits from your customers or other regulatory agencies, for example. Now, and that's a big win, because if you don't have that, then you know, in certain industries, you're not even able to be in the market. Now, in the 2010s, a lot of the companies then took on top of that, systems for, you know, to enable the more process-centric view of the world. For example, that enabled them to have workflows in their day-to-day lives from a like an automated standpoint. And then, for example, better control over who gets to actually access that information. But now, as we're moving on to the 2020s, we are paying a lot more attention to these engagement-centric systems. What are the actual tools that we are using to both access the information in the governance-centric systems, but also how do we utilize those systems to drive the processes that we actually need to have underneath all of that information? And we feel that with the combination of Teams and then mFiles, we are able to actually solve the whole pile of this, and we can actually help people drive their business through these engagement-centric systems with the baseline of the process-centric systems and government-centric systems in place. So I just want you to sort of think about where your company is at this point, and where do you see yourselves in the future, and how this applies to your company as well. So now that we sort of set the scene a bit, I want to talk a bit about how do we solve this over here at mFiles. So if you know anything about us, this might be a bit of a boring part, but you know, for the people who are joining in, who joined in for the first time, I just wanted to show, like, this is the very basics of what we do at mFiles. We over here, we organize all of our information based on what it is rather than where it is actually stored. So we don't really care about the location or the folder or the drive of the document or even the repository of the document, but what we're interested in, what we're truly interested in, is what the information is. Like, for example, in this case, is it a contract, or is it a non-disclosure agreement? What customer is it connected to? Who's able to authorize this document? What date is it? So this is information about information. This is the metadata-driven information management that we keep talking about. So when we combine these two pictures then, and we take a look at how this all fits into your digital workplace and your digital enterprise, on the left-hand side, we have those engagement-centric systems, such as your Skypes or Teams, especially nowadays, your personal content, for example, in OneDrive, or your intranet in the form of SharePoint, and with your documents and contacts in the form of PowerPoints, Word, Excels, and Outlook. These are the applications that the people actually want to use, what they need to use, and what they're used to using. But in the background over there, you do still need to have those things, such as workflows. You need to have approvals for those documents in there. You need to have the governance of, of those documents with certain, compliance requirements from regulations, for example. You need to get through audits. Who gets to have access to this documents? Does it need to have a digital signature, for example, connected to it? Where does what do the records go into? And we feel that at mFiles, we have a great solution for that part. And in the demo world, we'll take a look at how all of that works together. So in practice, so what are some of the ways that we can help people actually, fulfill their goals and actually go through their day-to-day lives at work? So I talked a bit about the systems of engagement. And at mFiles, we have 3 different types of ways to help you, utilize these different tools. We have our desktop application that people use for, and they've used it for a long time, and it's still very good for when you're doing deep work. So when you actually need to concentrate and you really need absolutely no distractions, and if you're like me and you sometimes don't remember to put, people on a do not disturb me mode, like in Teams or things like that. The desktop is still pretty good. Or for example, mobile when you're working remotely. Or you can use our Outlook integration. When you're doing deep collaboration, you can actually just view everything from Outlook, and you do need to collaborate with people, but actually other people's input is needed. So you are collaborating, but you're actually in control of the pace. And obviously email is one of the longest standing technologies over there. So it's actually pretty refined in the way, in the protocols, but also like the different manners and how quickly we expect people to respond to us, etc. So that etiquette has been refined very deeply. But right now, as we're moving more and more into the world of collaboration, this is pretty much the newest facet also for us at mFiles. It's evolving incredibly fast. People are actually adopting Teams at a really incredibly fast pace. Just yesterday, I had a friend of mine send out a picture of how their Teams usage has evolved from before, for example, the COVID-19 epidemic. And their Teams usage had doubled ever since the pandemic. And this is not to say that they weren't using Teams before. They were using it, but right now, the fact that they have a tool that allows them to work efficiently as a team has been paramount. And so because it's such a new technology, obviously not all of the etiquette and all the different immediate gains might not be as quick or as great as people would expect. But because it's so quickly evolving, these types of tools that bring us will see us move more and more towards this type of collaboration that allows us to have a single hub in which we work and from which we actually do all of these deep collaboration, deep work, and our collaboration as well, probably in the future. So with that, we wanted to be there as well. So we wanted to connect world-class information management with the world-class collaboration from Microsoft Teams. So we present the mFiles for Microsoft Teams. Some of the main challenges that our customers came to us with were, so how do we manage document permissions in Teams? Like, you've got this information management platform, so how do we do it in Teams? What about archiving sites and documents? So if we do have a team or a channel for a project, but we then decide to delete it, what happens to the documents afterwards, and how do we do that? What about our content that's actually stored outside of the repositories of the O365 or Microsoft 365? So how do we manage information? What are some of the best practices that you could have in there? And where do we save it? Which team site, which channel on Teams? All of these different things. So we wanted to connect all of that. So we wanted people to be able to access the relevant documents via multiple Teams channels, not just a single one. We wanted people to still be able to edit those documents within those familiar Office applications, just as within Teams. We wanted people to actually have access to all of their active and legacy repositories, even their network drives through Teams. And also, obviously, make sure that people are always working from the latest version so that you don't have 15 different versions of the same document within the system. Automatic access control so that you know that you're allowed to access that information that you're in there, and that other people who don't have access will not be able to see that. And then automatic record keeping and archiving of that material as well. So enough of me probably just talking about this, and we can actually go and take a look at what that looks like in practice. So over here, I have Microsoft Teams. And it's, I'm assuming that a lot of you people are already using it, so I'm not going to spend too much time going through the user interface. But we have a few different teams for our customers, for example, and people working with those customers. We have, teams for our projects, our channels for the team for our projects with different channels in there for different projects, et cetera, et cetera. So over here, we have our customer ESTT with the posts over here and the different chats that people are going in. We have over here a tab called mFiles. And if I were to click on this tab of mFiles, you can actually see that we have our actual mFiles UI brought into the Teams. So, and not only that, we have information flowing in not only from mFiles, but as you can see, from Google Drive, from SharePoint, from our network folders, and all of those different places that you might have information in. So we're already collecting information from multiple different places, and we're breaking down the silos of those different legacy systems that you might have still rolling around. And if we go over here and we'll look at this information we have, for example, over here, Microsoft Teams demo May 2020. If I were to click on this document, what we get over here on the right-hand side is what we call a metadata card for people not familiar with mFiles. This is all the information we have on this document. So we say that it's a memo, it's for this date, it's for this project and this customer, and it's even for this Salesforce opportunity. So we've also been able to link this system with Salesforce so that you're getting your information also connected from your Salesforce, including opportunities and the customer information that is coming in, so that you can actually tag your information with customer information coming from Salesforce. So we have this document over here and all of these other documents that are connected to this customer because of the metadata for the ESTT Corporation. Now, over here, we also have a document called an example of the MS Teams integration versatility. So basically, this document is just a document, and we've only given two pieces of information about it. It's got a customer and it's got a project. So when we talked about, breaking down the silos also between the actual teams and the channels, what we mean is this. So this document is also connected to a project of website graphics for ESTT. And if I were to go over here into the website graphics for ESTT, I also have over here an mFiles tab. And if I go and click on that, what I will get is a very similar screen, but only with the documents from all of our various different repositories that are connected to this project. And over here, I can see the exactly same document. So this is not a different document that's being copied into two different places. Both of these channels are accessing the same version of this document in mFiles. So already we are, not only breaking down the silos between the different systems, but also between different channels as well. But we obviously can take this one step further. We're over here right now logged in as the demo user, which is, I agree, not that great of a name for a person. But if we were to switch over to our website, on the website side and the web version, in which we are actually logged in as the demo user 2, which is just as imaginative, we can see that the amount of documents that they can see over here is a lot shorter. Now, this is because of the Azure AD integration. And because I'm logged in as the demo user 2 in my Windows, I'm also only seeing the information that a person would see in mFiles with the single sign-on that they're logged in with. So we're bringing access information and access control also into the mix. So you can see that I'm, for example, as a demo user 2, I am not able to see the actual example of the MS Teams versatility over here on this side, as I was able to over here as the demo user. Okay, so then, another thing, we talked about editing documents. So over here, we have the Microsoft Teams demo for the May 2020. And I can actually check this information out. And what this does is that it actually starts me the Microsoft Word editor over here for me to start actually editing this document immediately. So I checked it out for me to use, and I'm starting to edit this, and I can say, includes editing. as it's saving it, it's now saved it into mFiles. I can close it and check it back in for people. And now in each and every one of these different teams and channels, they now have the latest version of this information available for them, so that they're always working from that single version of truth, always with the latest information and without multiple different versions. Okay, so this is how we can actually break down silos, bring in information from multiple different repositories, but also make sure that people are always working with the latest information. But for people who are familiar with mFiles, I mean, we're not only about documentation and connecting information from different repositories. We have other objects too. And to sort of demonstrate that, I've created over here a very quick ticketing system for us with this same mFiles integration. So over here, we have objects which are called, for example, technical requests. And these are just the same type of documents or objects as the documents were, but these don't have a document in them. It just has, you know, amount of information like about name or title, a description, who's the owner, and what customer they're connected to. So when I go into the ESTT, I'm going to look at my tickets for ESTT. I'm going to see all of ESTT tickets. I also see over here a workflow. So for example, if I were to get now a technical request from a customer, either via a web app or something like that, or via email, I could actually create one over here, a new support ticket for ESTT Corporation saying, please find the latest contract for renewal or something like that. It's not a very technical ticket, but you get my point. I'm going to put in over here a contact person from ESTT. I'm going to use myself as the owner, and I'm not going to put any description over here, and I'm going to say support ticket, new ticket over here. So what it says over here is a support ticket, new ticket. What that means is that it's going into a workflow automatically, and I can actually push this forward into the assigned state, and this would then trigger, for example, an email for me. If I'm not working completely 100% of the times in Teams, it would trigger out an email telling me that there is now a new support ticket. Please go and check it out via whichever UI you feel most natural. But obviously, because I'm looking at now all the different tickets for ESTT, we talked about the Azure AD integration. What I'm actually most interested in is not just the tickets for ESTT, but what I'm interested in is what about the tickets for me? So over here, I've made another tab over here in the Teams general settings, and I can go over here into my tickets. And because of the actual Azure AD integration, what I'm able to do is that I'm able to show all the different tickets that are actually related to me, my demo user. So everybody can have this exactly the same tab over here, my tickets, and they will show all the different information that is relevant to them instead of showing everything connected to that specific channel, for example. And this is a great way for you to start building, for example, your own assigned to me lists or your sort of work order for that day. What are the different tasks that you actually need to complete during that day over there? And obviously on top of that, because we have this embedded UI over here in Teams, we also realize that sometimes things need to be published from Teams into other applications as well. So for example, if you're an avid user of SharePoint, you can actually use the same integration over here on SharePoint side, and you have your ESTT Corporation or some other SharePoint site that you're using, you can have the same integration over here, access the exact same information through your SharePoint as well, so that you always know that you're working with whatever is the latest version and single version of the truth. Okay, So this was a very short and a quick and dirty type of introduction into what the mFiles integration with Teams can do. Obviously, I know that there's going to be a lot more questions about how it all works and how does it work, etc. But this, especially if you're not familiar with mFiles, how do we connect all of this information with these Teams and SharePoint applications? So, don't hesitate to contact for us on that. But as a sort of a conclusion of this application, for risk management, for reducing those duplicate items in the different repositories, so that you only have one single version of the truth. Time saving, you're no longer switching between UIs, but you actually get the information right there from that context of that chat, of that channel, for example. You get into that information within mFiles. So what that reduces is obviously your application switching, that context switching that Harry was actually talking about, with those introductions. Well, what was I doing? What was I searching for? Oh yeah, this. And then with the risk management, that people, because everything can be found so well over here, you actually get people using the systems that are assigned for this. So you get adoption and engagement. You don't have people using their own personal email addresses, for example, for quick saving documents, or people saving information on their desktops, or even worse, to their personal Dropbox accounts, for example. So you get all of these different benefits, and you get better usability just by actually bringing proper information management on to work with your world-leading collaboration site. So with that, right now we have still a few minutes left, so we can go into some questions and answers. I can see that there are some over here already, and Harry, I'm going to unmute you as well right now, and we can take a look at some of the questions that we've gotten over here during the presentation, and we can go through some if you'd like.
I think that many of the Microsoft Teams, purely Microsoft Teams related questions have been answered in the chat already, but
okay.
Your presentation seems engaging the audience, because there are probably 20 questions related to the stuff you presented, and quite detailed questions. So I think that
let's go through some of these.
Teams part is pretty well covered, but mFiles integration and specific scenarios, there's lots of them now.
Perfect. So there's a few, and some of these are very specific. So let's go through some of these. So when using mFiles via Teams, does it have the full features of the desktop version? Not all of the different features from the desktop have yet swam into the embedded UI versions of mFiles. What we started is, what are the most necessary things that we need over there, and what are the things and features that people utilize the most? Editing of the documents, creating new objects, like those tickets, for example, finding the information, getting the previews, and pushing documents, for example, forward in workflows. Those are the things that we've started with, and obviously we are adding to that pool with every release cycle. Then there's a question about, is mFiles for Teams using the mFiles web, or is it using the API to query mFiles? They are their own application, so a very detailed question there, but they are their own application in there, and so that it is not just the mFiles web that is being projected over there. What if we had thousands of documents under one project? Can we arrange those in group listings? That is a yes. So basically, what we're doing is we are connecting a single team, a single view into that tab. So what you can do quite nicely is that you can actually, show a view that still has a view grouping levels underneath that, so that you can then go and browsing into that. It's a very good question, because even though we're in a demo sort of a environment, we only have about 30 to 40 documents, but probably in real life you would have thousands, so that you can do that and even further then categorize these. So how does version control work if you work together in one document? So in that case, the document should be checked out into a co-authoring mode. And this is one of those things that we are still working into bringing into the mFiles Teams integration, even though we have it already on the desktop side. So in that case, the way that it works is that you check out a document into a co-authoring mode. All of you edit the document at once in the Office Online version, and then, or the Microsoft 365 version of the Word, and then you would check that back in once everybody's done editing that document. But this is, to start the co-authoring directly from mFiles is a feature that we are still bringing in there into the application. Then there's a question about, let's see, does this plugin only work with the cloud-based implementations of mFiles? An on-premise mFiles solution? Yes, it does. So you can utilize also these integrations with your on-premise mFiles solutions as well, because all of that information is accessed through the Azure AD. So nobody outside of your organization or outside of their access control would be able to see that, but we are able to use the mFiles APIs to utilize that information from your desktop environments as well, if you wish to configure it so. And then some other questions. There are tens of questions, so I apologize for just going through them from the top. Can I have more information about how to set up the workflows via the integration? All of the different workflows and all the different structures and the metadata structures are actually set up in the mFiles admin tool and not within the integration. So all the different workflows are set up for these different document types and things like that to be as versatile as possible from the actual mFiles admin tool, and then you're able to utilize all of that in the Microsoft Teams application. Then, okay, backup and restore versions of mFiles. I think I better take this offline, because you have, first of all the different versions of your documents are being obviously stored within mFiles, but then you have backups of those as well. So you can basically actually restore to any previous version of any specific documents and look at the history information from within the mFiles UI, but you can also obviously then have backups of your entire vault structures, etc., to then bring back into later on. Then a licensing question about, does everybody who wants to access the mFiles tab in Teams need an mFiles license? The answer to that is yes. So you are basically accessing the full mFiles at that point. So you will, you must have some sort of an mFiles license to be able to access mFiles over there already. Then there is about, for example, if you're using mFiles in Teams already, is it a free feature or does it cost something to connect the two? It really depends on the tier that you're in within mFiles and what your sort of subscription level to mFiles Online is. And if you're in a specific, like an older licensing model, then please connect, or just contact your contact person at mFiles, and they'll be able to, take a look at that for you, whether or not you are eligible to use it already. There's a good chance that a lot of our users are already able to use it free of charge. And how does it look from the mFiles client when you work with the files in Teams? So basically, the mFiles client works just as fine on its own with that, from whether you're working within Teams or with the mFiles client. So you can actually be utilizing all of these UIs together. So these are not mutually exclusive, but only bring more information in there. But with that answered, I do believe that that's all the time that we have for you guys tonight. We will definitely be taking a look at all the different questions that you sent, and we'll be answering them to you remotely then via email. Thank you very much for your time today. I want to thank all of our guests from Microsoft. Thank you very much, Harri, for being a part of this. It wouldn't have been possible without you. And thank you very much for your attention. And I hope you have a great rest of the day, wherever you might be. Thank you.
Thank you.